Hello, and welcome to the Self-Publishing Discussion Series. My name is Linda Riesenberg-Fissler, and I'm so happy that you joined the Artistic Harmonies website and that you are now able to watch this series of talks that we're doing. This one is called, Myths and Realities of Publishing Your First Book. We're going to be doing a series of these. These are taken from discussions that I did at local bookstores or national regional bookstores, different book talks that we've had, and some of my own personal experience that I've had starting out publishing my books. I have 7 books out there now. A number of them are how-to books, and a couple of them are fiction, and I'm actually looking forward to publishing my next fiction book coming up. The first myth we are going to talk about is, I have a unique story that everyone will absolutely love. Okay, we are unique, and we have our own writing style, and we probably have some stories that we think are unique, but they may not be unique, and not everyone's going to be interested in the story. So understand your demographic and knowing that demographic will then help you determine who those people are that do love your story. This is especially true for fiction writers. It's a lot easier to build a how-to author platform, how to sell your best-selling books, how to take back your time, which is one of my how-to books on time management. How to paint, which is another, how to paint from brush to palette knife. Those are all, easy way to find my demographic and to write to that. Fiction novels, fiction writers have a harder time finding that demographic. So you will always start out with your friends and your family, and these folks will be your biggest supporters and the best word-of-mouth advertisers that you ever have. And I don't care what anybody says, word-of-mouth advertising is still the best advertising today. Have the right expectation for your book as you start out. Do your research on your audience and who you're trying to attract, and be ready to describe your book in one sentence. And we'll talk a little bit more about that one sentence narration, or that one sentence grabber, one-liner, if you will. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on in the presentation here. So the next the next myth that we are going to talk about is myth number 2. I don't need an editor. Yes, you do need an editor. I'm sorry, there's no room for argument on this. We need help from someone not close to the story to make sure that we're making sense. As much as we like to think we are storytellers and great writing just flows from our fingertips, we need help to massage the words and check our timelines, find our typos, and misuse of phrases or words, or phrases or words that are regionalized is another example of that. Your book or manuscript is not a blog, so people will take notice of mistakes and typos. So you need an editor that will whip that so-so book into a great book. There are also things called manuals of style. The Chicago Manual of Style is what my editor uses. And the book will read better, and it will be more enjoyable for the readers if you have it edited. You don't need to go through a publishing company to have a book edited. There are freelance editors. And if you're going to spend the money on your book, this is where you should spend it. Even the big names like Stephen King and Diane Gabaldon and Andy Weir and just these huge names that are out there, Ken Follett. I mean, I could go on forever and listing names. They all have editors. And the reason why they have editors is they know that they need that little extra help to just take that so-so book and make it this next bestseller. So does having an editor mean that you're going to have a bestseller? No, but it's going to give you a better chance to build your author platform. Have the book edited. And the other thing is, don't fear the red marks, okay? When you have it book edited by someone who has been trained in a manual of style, like the Chicago Manual of Style, for example, you're going to be amazed at just how how many errors there are and how many red marks there are, and you're going to be shocked when you open up that first file. I had a lot of coaching on this from other authors who are friends of mine, so I wasn't that much shocked. I prepared myself for almost every line having a red mark on it that needed to be changed or a comment made, but they were really, really helpful, because at one point in this discussion with my editor, she had comments off to the side, and this is usually done in Microsoft Word, and there are comments that are posted off to the side. And one of the things is like, you may want to check your timeline. This doesn't exactly make sense. It doesn't take 12 hours to drive from point A to point B. And so, it may not be nighttime yet when they arrive. And so little points like that were very, very helpful. And you may not think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal to your reader if you're not consistent. One little misquoted thing or something that just doesn't jive with them, like it took 12 hours to drive from point A to point B, and it's dark already. Unless you say that they stopped off for a 3-hour lunch or something like that, it's not going to work. So there's this thing called suspension of disbelief that you need to do, and editors are very good at pointing those particular things out. There are different kinds of editing. You can do copy edits, you can do story edits. I mean, there are a lot of different types of editors out there. So when you're out looking for a particular edit, make sure that you're selecting the right one. And again, don't fear the red marks. Welcome them. They're your friend. They really, really are. Be consistent with your writing style. And that starts with an editor who uses a particular manual of style. So, for example, I've mentioned this a couple times now, the Chicago Manual of Style is what my first fiction book was written or was edited to. So my next fiction book, because my style is important to me and how I'm going to carry this on through my next book, will also be edited by an editor that uses the Chicago Manual of Style. So stick with a particular you don't have to stick with a particular editor as much as you need to stick with a particular way that it has been edited. So if, let's say you have your first book and you have that edited in one particular way, but you don't particularly like the editor, so you just didn't hit it off. There wasn't a gelling there, or any type of relationship that could be made. So it's good to just go ahead and maybe go look for another editor. Maybe you found someone who doesn't charge quite as much. Maybe you found someone who could turn it around quicker. So if that is the case, just make sure that you're staying with the same manual of style, so that the readers that your new readers, your non-friends and your non-family who pick up the book off of Amazon, let's say, that the next time that they see you have a book out, they're going to be looking for something similar to the first book that they read in style. So this will keep them right in line with everything that you've done with your first book. It's the same style. They'll feel like they're picking up an old friend to read it. So again, have an editor, and your chances are better at things that will help you promote your book, like contests or competitions and awards and different things like that. So yes, editors are very, very, very important, and don't skip that. The next myth that we're going to talk about, to me, is just as important as an editor, but I had to do the myths as 1, 2, and 3, like numbered along the line here. So what I'm going to do with this next one is we're going to talk about myth number 3. And myth number 3 is cover design is not as important as what is in the inside. So, cover design, I have on the slide, I have it saying that it is second behind editing. I really put them neck and neck. So maybe this is 2A is you need to have an editor, and myth 2B is cover design is really, really important. You have one chance to make a first impression. So think about when you're out and you're looking at the book that you're going to read, that you're going to pick up to read, and the first thing that grabs you is that cover. The second thing that happens, and I've been watching folks when they've been looking at my book Blind Influence at signings and different things like that, where I get to make a connection, and we'll talk about that with a reader, because that's another myth. But anyway, they pick up my book. There's usually a comment about the serpent that is on the front. They automatically think it's science fiction. So it was like, note to self, no more serpents on the front cover unless I'm writing science fiction. So, the next thing they did is they flip it over and they start looking at the book blurb. So again, cover design, first impressions, this is what's going to make them open it up and possibly start reading your first couple paragraphs. But that book cover is really important. It makes that first impression. Your book cover also needs to make your book stand out from all of the other millions of books that are out there. I mean, think about when you're out shopping on the internet and you're looking for, put in new fantasy series, or you're over at Goodreads and you put in new fantasy series, and all of these books come up. And typically, my habit is I'm scrolling down until I see an interesting cover that grabs my eye. That's what you need to think about when you're having your cover design, when you're working on your cover design. A weak cover equals a missed opportunity. People that are just scrolling right by, or they pick up the book and it doesn't grab them and they put it right back down. That's not good. That was a missed sale. That was a missed opportunity. Do it yourself, DIY. Make sure you know what a great cover entails. And there are a number of people that are out there that do cover design. Some of them have worked at big agencies like Random House or Penguin or Harper Collins or whatever, and they may be out freelancing now. But the other thing that you need to make sure of is that you understand yourself what makes a great cover. So go out to Google, just Google, what makes a great book cover, and you'll see a number of free articles that'll be available that'll help give you some direction in this particular place. One person that I absolutely love his approach, and I know that he's very artistic, is Derek Murphy, and he has a lot of free stuff on cover design. So if you go out and look at, I think it's creativeindie.com, his website, he has a lot of free information for you on book covers that you could find very, very helpful. Another thing, don't be a copycat, be original. This is kind of, my little take on book covers. Basically, when I start seeing a man, a shape of a man running in front of a tunnel, that's supposed to tell me mystery, espionage, crimes, the guy's in trouble type of thing. It's kind of getting to be old hat. And, so you want it to be original. You want it to stand out in a crowd. And that's one reason why I actually ended up with my Blind Influence cover being the way that it is, because I had all three key pieces of what was going on with that book, which goes back to my one-liner on how I try to sell it. All of that is on the thing. So yeah, they pick up the book, they go, oh, it's science fiction because it has a serpent on it. And I say, oh, no, the serpent is the assassin. Here, let me tell you about the book, or I tell them the one-liner, which I'll get to in a little bit. But, that's a discussion piece when you're trying to sell your book. Unfortunately, if you're not there signing them, I probably have a lot of missed opportunities with the serpent, but at least if they flip to the back cover, they understand that the serpent is the assassin because that's called out in the book blurb. So don't be a copycat, be original. Don't be afraid to go out on the limb just a little bit. Be a little bit fearless with your book cover, but do try to make it so that it stands out in the crowd. There are freelance book cover designers. If it's your first book, I recommend that you hire one of them to do your cover, just because hopefully if the relationship is a good one, they'll be telling you why they chose certain elements. And if they don't tell you, don't be afraid to ask them. Ask them why they put this particular element in that particular way. They've done millions of covers. They've done, hundreds of covers. They should be able to tell you why that particular element was the way it is. It brought in more sales, or it just makes the book look very professional, or whatever the reason is. They should be able to tell you that particular thing. I just want to make another comment on book covers here before I move on. There was a really famous author. I'm going to not say his name, but he had a new book out, and I was at a book signing, and it was kind of slow. I was there for 8 hours. It was actually in an airport, but an airport bookshop. So I was kind of walking around and looking at things, and I looked at this book cover, and it had these geometric lines going from one corner of the book cover to the other, and across and down and at an angles, and it was just very, very hard to read the title with these lines going everywhere. And I thought, oh wow, this, I wonder if this person went indie, or I guess it just wasn't something that I would expect to come out of a big publishing house. And maybe that's why they did it, because they didn't want you to think that it came out of a big publishing house. But I flipped it over, and it actually did come out of a huge publishing house. And then I started looking at the book formatting on the inside, which is also important. And that's another myth that I don't really cover here, but book formatting, how it's formatted on the inside, the type that you use is also very important. And, I'm flipping through this book, and the type was just very offsetting. Off-putting. It was like something I didn't really want to read. It was very cold, very stoic. And, I don't know if they were going for that, but it was a real turnoff for me. So again, book formatting, cover design, and you need an editor. Three realities that you need to grasp, what we're talking about here. Those three things are huge, and they make your book. As much as you are the storyteller, as much as you are just as important, because you're creating the story and the plot points and all that good stuff. These little cosmetic things that you can do are just, they're priceless. They're just priceless. If you're going to ask people to spend a lot of money for your book, you need to do and pay attention to those three things. The fourth myth that we're going to talk about is the one that we all love, and we all say, especially when we're writing our first book. My book will be discovered overnight, and within the first week or month, I'll be on the bestseller list. And not only are you thinking or saying this, you probably see the ads on Facebook and all the different places. If you do a search, there's ads all about, I can make you a bestseller with your first book. Oh, how I wish that were true. And I've sat down and gone through a lot of these marketing seminars and workshops and things that are online, because I wanted to have an idea of how I needed to market my books. And they were great, because they opened up my eyes to things that I didn't even really think about. And so I do recommend that you do pay attention to some of these workshops, and that you do take one and make notes, but always remember to make things yours. Okay. Depending on your book genre and your author platform, and how well you did with your research and marketing plan, those all affect how quickly your book will be noticed, your book will be bought, your ability to reach bestseller status. And again, we talked a little bit. Be careful of the how-to courses that are out there. There's this whole thing about nonfiction and fiction. And we'll get into more about this when we start talking about the book landscape and what sells. And that's the third discussion in this series. But basically, nonfiction sells a lot better than fiction. So we have people who are teaching, or that are selling you a course on how to become a bestseller. Well, naturally, they're a bestseller because they're selling a book on how it becomes a bestseller. So the workshop that I attended, the seminar that I attended, was an online one. It was very, like I said, it was very, very informative. I don't regret sitting through it, but it was geared to telling you how to sell a how-to book. So a nonfiction how-to book, a nonfiction story. Let's say you were adopted and you went through the process of trying to find your adopted parents or your real parents, your biological parents. So write a book on how to find your biological parents, and it'll probably sell better than the actual story of you, going through the heartache and the excitement and then the celebration. It's two different things. A lot of people buy the nonfiction how-to books, and then it's harder. It's just very, very much harder to reach and grab the fiction reader to build that platform. I've yet to actually sit through one of these workshops where they're actually paying a lot of attention to the fiction writer, because it's hard. It's hard to build your platform in a fiction world, because there's a lot of fiction books out there. There's a lot of how-to books out there too, but there's just a huge amount of fiction books, and it's harder to get that grassroots started. And we'll talk a little bit about that. As a matter of fact, we'll actually have a discussion series on how we build an author platform too. So hang on for that as well. One way to get out there and meet prospective readers is get out there. Do book signings, do talks, do whatever it takes to get this book in their hand. Don't go to just book stores and have book signings. Get out there to any store that will have you, and any business that will have you, so that you can talk about your book. Have a little bit of what you went through to write the book. Talk about your research. Do little book talks. Do a bunch of different little things. But you have to get out there. You can't do it. You can't just write a book, put it out on Amazon, and expect it to sell, okay? That's not going to happen. Use that one-sentence description, one-liner, to hook your prospective readers. You've got about 30 seconds for them to decide whether or not they're interested. For Blind Influence, my one-liner is, it's kind of like Jason Bourne meets the good wife in The West Wing. It's everything they need to know about that book. There's political intrigue, there's an espionage aspect to it, there's a British agent, and there's a lawyer, a female lawyer, that's the center and the main character. Tells them everything they need to know. If they watch or read any of those books, all of a sudden I got them. I got them right there. They turn around, they say to me, oh, I like da-da-da-da. And there I go. I go off and start talking about how the book does it a little bit differently. Free is a slippery slope. Watch out for free. And Andy Weir is an exception. He's not a rule. Andy Weir is the one that wrote The Martian and gave it away for free, and then he sold his book rights. That's an exception. That's not the rule. And free is a slippery slope. If you give something away for free, most of the people that picked it up for free may or may not read it, but they may or may not be around until you do something else for free. So keep that in mind. Find readers who will shout from the mountaintops that they love your book and style. And the reason why you want to do that is because word of mouth advertising is the best. They're going to become your street team. They're going to be the ones that'll be out there going, all right, our second book's out. Let's go buy it and talk about it. They're going to be willing to set you up with their book clubs and do different talks. So keep that in mind. And the other last thing that I want to talk about is no matter how tired you are of talking about your book, it may be the 900th time that you've talked about that book, be excited. This is the first time that this person will either met you or talked to you or found you on Facebook or whatever. Be excited and always be thankful that they did find you. So always be grateful for that. The next myth we're going to talk about is my book will be discovered overnight and within... Oh, sorry. Let's go back. Is the fifth myth that we have here. And that is, I'll sign up for a writing summit, workshop, marketing at seminar, and then I'll be a bestseller. So your book's been out there for a while and you go, well, gosh, I must have done something wrong because I'm not selling all that many. And I wanted to sell all that many. I spent a lot of money on editing and cover design and formatting. And oh my gosh, I got to get this money back. So I'm going to sign up for this workshop, this marketing workshop. Well, I'm going to be a little honest here. I have mixed feelings about this myth. Some people, it works out really great and selling just comes to them very, very well. And you know, they can sell anything. And I really envy those people. But like I said before, people running the seminars are very good at selling their nonfiction. How do you become a bestseller book or whatever? And some of them give them away for free. And you know, and then there's this whole strategy of, well, if it didn't sell the first time, get a new cover and see how that does it. Well, I'm not exactly made of money, you know. So unless I'm going to build my covers myself, which I don't really want to do at this point because I don't know enough about it. But you know, unless I'm building them myself, I'm not going to be covering them and doing different things like that. One thing that I did do, though, because I was like, I was just really baffled with the, you know, I went to these seminars and I read all these books about how to market my book. And, you know, I'm still not reaching that 400 sales a day or 100 sales a day or 10 books sold a day or whatever the magic number is. Then I decided, well, I'm going to go and check out where the folks that are telling me their how to become bestsellers, where their fiction books are over on Amazon. And that was kind of an interesting little research project that I did. Some of them were up high on the hot new release or best-selling list. And I'm saying high, I'm saying like, you know, within the top 20, let's say. Some of them weren't so high. And it could be that they're between releases, and that's fine. But, you know, if you find someone who has a fiction book that's in, let's say, the top 10, and they're doing a how to become bestseller book, that might be somebody that you might want to pay attention to. So keep that in mind, and do some research. I mean, you certainly don't see, other than James Patterson, you certainly don't see Stephen King out there doing seminars and things like that. And I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't be doing them or I shouldn't be doing them either, because information is a great thing, and sharing your experiences are definitely a great thing. But, you know, keep your expectations real. Don't go, you know, okay, I'm going to go do this and now I'm going to sell 150, 25 books a day. Just be real with your expectations. Use the free information in seminars to spur ideas for your marketing plan. You may not be comfortable doing some of the things that are suggested in the workshops or seminars. And it may, if you're not comfortable with it, it's not going to come off as feeling real or being real to the people that are listening or the people that are that you're trying to sell to. Be yourself. Be what you're comfortable with. Go from there. If you aren't comfortable talking to a lot of people or doing book signings, that's probably something you're going to need to work on. But, you know, get some coaching, get some help to help you feel comfortable with that. Concentrate on your first 100 readers, then 200 readers, or maybe your first 50 readers, or maybe your first 25 readers. You'll get to 10,000 readers or more. With a lot less frustration if you concentrate on the smaller numbers and a lot more celebration. And I don't know about you guys, but I like celebrating a lot more than I like frustration. So I went out of the gate with very, very high expectations with, you know, okay, I've done all these things and now I'm going to sell 100 books a day. And, you know, it didn't happen. So what happened? I got in a funk and why am I a writer? I don't want to be a writer anymore. You know, the expectations weren't real. But when I step back and say, gosh, look at everything I've done, all the book talks, all the book signings, how many people have written me private notes because I put my email address at the end of the book and said, tell me what you think. And, you know, I may not be getting a lot of reviews out on Amazon, but I am getting some pretty wonderful emails from people who have read my book. And you know, that's a celebration. I open a bottle of wine on that day and, you know, have a glass and toast the person that wrote me. And I make sure I write them back because they took time to write me. And that tells me a lot about my book. And that tells me a lot about a relationship that I can build with that person. Cultivating relationships with loyal, engaged readers takes time. And cultivate every person that has ever written you. You know, write them back and really build that. I mean, I look at Diane Gabaldon's Facebook page. I follow her on Facebook, and every time she posts something, she's up in the 10 and 20,000, like range, or even more than that at times. And then she's had 200-300 people commenting. It's pretty much impossible on social media to get back to every one of those comments, but I would imagine that a lot of those relationships and those people that are commenting on her Facebook pages, are probably some of her oldest fans that have been with her through the whole ride up to where she is today. So remember, this is a journey. Enjoy the journey. It's going to take more than just one book. How do you build your author platform? One book at a time. So you keep writing. So between cultivating relationships, it being a journey and enjoying it, and building your author platform one book at a time, the main important thing to remember through all of this is keep writing. And the more books that you have out there, the more that you write, the more that you will start to engage people, the more comfortable you'll feel as all of this is going on. You may not be the best person in the world at the specific time to, in your reactions with people that are coming up to buy your book and book signings, when you're talking, giving book talks, all of these things, will come with time. I had a lot of presentations that I had to do in my old corporate career job. So talking in front of people is something that I'm very comfortable doing. So it was not a big stretch for me to give book talks and talk about what it took to write my book. And I created a little PowerPoint presentation, and we went through the whole thing. So it went very, very well. And the first book signing that I had was locally, and I had probably 28 people there. I sold 26 books. So, I had one person that bought books for, somebody else that they knew would end up liking it. So, again, get comfortable speaking with people and cultivating relationships. That's how you build your author platform. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. The last myth that we are going to talk about here is myth number 6, and it has to do with a rather big one. All publishing houses are the same. We're going to do another discussion topic just on self-publishing and publishing houses and different things like that. So we're only going to hit a couple things here. It's a huge topic. And unfortunately, all publishing houses are not created equal, although a lot of their practices are similar. Let's say. If you decide to use a small press, make sure you understand the contract that you're going to be asked to sign. Ask a lot of questions about your rights. And when I say that, what I mean is make sure that you do not sign away your rights to a publishing house. Do not give them the rights to your story. Do not give them the rights to your book. Make sure that when they're done doing whatever it is in the contract that they said they were going to do, that those book rights stay with you. That's the most important thing I can tell you. Them owning your book rights will do you no good. And understand that between the distribution companies like Amazon, Kobo, Ingram, Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on. There's so many of these. Lulu. I mean, there's so many of these things that are out there on the web. So between the distribution companies and between the publishing house, if you go with a publishing house, a small press, a vanity press, someone else putting your book together, basically is vanity press or small press houses, or a huge publishing house, you'll probably only end up receiving 10% of the royalties on your book. Okay, let me say that again. Amazon will take their 50%. Let's say you go with small publishing house A, they'll probably take 40%, and that leaves you with 10%. So basically you're going to earn about a buck on your book. If you do it yourself, if you self-publish, you're still going to have to give some money to whoever is distributing your book for you. Amazon will take their little bit of money. If you go through Ingram Spark and you mark the distribution, then 40 or 50% of that goes to Ingram Spark and whoever buys the Kobo or wherever it's bought from, takes their percentage. So again, if you're going to self-publish, you'll get more for your book, and it'll also allow you to actually sell your book a little bit lesser in price, which if you're a first-time novel, or novelist, or first-time book being out there, which, you may want to go just a little bit lower in price, just so people don't feel like they're plopping down a lot of money on a risk of artists that they haven't heard. So, let's say I have a book out there for $3.99 on Amazon that I self-published myself, an ebook. Amazon may take 40 cents of that or 50 cents of that, and they probably take a little bit more than that, about 70% or 70 cents of it, and I'm down around $2 and some odd cents per book. But that's still a much better deal than turning around. I could tell you, I sold Blind Influence through a small press at $12.95, and I got barely $1 on that after Amazon or whoever, the distributor, after whoever purchased it on whatever site they purchased it, they took their cut, and then my publishing house took their cut, and I ended up with just under $1 being given to me for writing the story. So again, doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to go with a publishing house, but if you don't have computer skills and you don't have patience formatting a book, and you don't have, you can hire those services out, and they will not ask for any royalties, okay, if you freelance with them, but they'll expect money up front, and the prices there may shock you a little bit. I just told you a little bit about my experience and learned from it. I ended up firing my small press. They did everything that they said they were going to do based on the contract. What I didn't have them doing, and I knew they weren't going to do, is marketing. Even the big name publishers like Random House and Penguin and HarperCollins and Simon & Schuster and blah, 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 on and on, they will not really market your book either. So you're back to building your own platform. And just so you know, Stephen King and David Mamet, they are no longer using a big name publisher. They are independent now. So keep that in mind. Other big names with huge established author platforms are changing and becoming independent authors. Of course, it's a lot easier for Stephen King to go to one distribution channel, like, let's say, supermarkets like Kroger's or Piggly Wiggly or something like that have book sections, at Myers, whatever. They have book sections, and it's very easy for whoever Stephen King's agent is to say, "Oh, Stephen King has a new book coming out. Do you want to put it on your shelf in your store?" Well, naturally they're going to say yes. So again, one thing that you're going to have to do here is get to know your local bookstore, your independent bookstore, and see if you can, work with them about putting your books on the shelf. You're going to need to be able to say that you're willing to take the books back if they don't sell, and that if you do take the book back, you will reimburse them the money. So again, it's the same thing. Whatever the trade is offering, you're going to need to offer the same thing to make it useful for them to stock your book and be helpful with them as well. Understand what an advance is and how it works. So let's say you do a great job in the next book that you're writing, a small press or a big press, a big house publisher comes in and says, "We want to publish your next book, and we're going to give you $5,000 up front." Well, what happens is that $5,000 is given to you to write your next book, and then until the publishing house makes their money back, then you start to make royalties. So you get paid $5,000, you write the book, they publish it, it gets out there, it makes $5,000 even, and nothing else after that. You and the publishing house are even now. They are not required to give you any of that $5,000 that they recovered from your advance. If it makes $6,000, then there is a percentage of that extra $1,000. Okay, so subtract 5,000 from 6,000, you get $1,000. There is a percentage of that $6,000 that you will get, depending on what the contract says, and there's a percentage that the publishing house will get. I guarantee you the publishing house will probably get 60% of that $1,000. And you will get 40% of that $1,000. And that's the way it'll be all the way out until you sell X amount of books. There'll be some figure in the contract as well. And when it hits that level, then, maybe the publishing house drops to 40% and you get to 60%. Now, again, the big publishing houses and the small publishing houses are not doing the marketing. You're going to be doing the marketing. And so, they may be able to get it into a supermarket or something like that for you, but the bottom line is they aren't going to be doing a lot of marketing for you. So make sure when you're looking over those contracts that you're looking at, is there anything in here that talks about marketing and what they're going to be doing for me? If there isn't anything in there, if you get offered a contract, if there isn't anything in there, you'll want to ask the question, what kind of marketing are you going to do for me? Is there any marketing involved? What are you expecting me to do? Because there may be things in there that they expect you to go around and do talks and different things like that as well. So really be clear and really go through that contract if you get offered one and understand what the advance is and how it works. So those are the pretty big, I would say, top 6 myths that I've run across here lately in doing my book launch. And actually I've done a number of book launches in a number of different ways and I've gleaned a number of things off of that. If you were at the live presentations, this is the point where I start talking about questions and asking questions, answering questions and things like that. But since this is just a recorded talk, I won't be able to do that. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and we'll go over that contact information in a bit. Our next live talks are at the Booksellers in Austin Landing, and that is just south of Dayton, Ohio. And our next talk is February 11th at 7 p.m. and probably the following Saturday as well. So the 13th of February, I will probably be doing the same talk, and we're going to talk about starting the new year off right, and we're going to create some goals and objectives, goals, strategies, and measurements. And I'll talk a little bit about the tool that we're going to use to do that at the actual talk, and I'll actually take you through this in the next discussion series as well. And the next presentation after that is going to be on March 8th and possibly the following Saturday, which is then March 10th, and we'll be talking about what sells. We'll look at the book publishing landscape. So we'll take a quick look at the book, at the marketing, what's selling out there, how that information can be used to get you some credence in the book market, how you can get noticed in a vast, market that's selling your books. And Sally will talk a little bit about what is selling at Booksellers at Austin Landing, and I'll probably take some notes on that and include that in my little presentations that we're going to do here that are available at Artistics Harmonies. So let's talk about how you get in touch with me. I am on Facebook. Linda Riesenberg Fissler is my Facebook name, and I'm on Twitter at lfissler, F-I-S-L-E-R. And I am also on Pinterest, and Google Plus, and there's my website, which is www.lindafissler.com, and then there's Artistic Harmonies, which is the membership site, which, if you're listening to this, you are already a member of. So thank you so much for becoming a member. And again, this little series will be available through the blog there. You can email me at Cincy, C-I-N-C-Y, redhead, at gmail.com, or at lfissler, L-F-I-S-S-L-E-R, Fisler, at lindafisler.com. They both go to the same mailbox, so I'll be able to pick anything, either one of those emails sent to either one of those email addresses. And I'll be happy to get back in touch with you. And let's see, how else can you get a hold of me? I think that pretty much is it. So any questions you have, go ahead and send them to me. Like I said, this is 6 of the myths that I've run into so far that needed to be a little bit dispelled, I think. And speaking of writing, I think I'm going to get back at it, and we'll talk to you next time. And the next presentation in our series will be starting the new year right and creating objectives, goals, strategies, and measurements for your new published book. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening.